right. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of comprehensive D&D 5e guides. Which one of these days I'll come up with a better name for it. But for right now, it fits. It's hard to say, but it fits. First things first, you may notice some different things, like I'm not wearing my headset. Finally got my new mic. It's a Yeti caster. It's really nice. However, it's very different. It's a really powerful mic, and I can't remember if I've mentioned this, but when I got my new computer, I got as good a computer as I could, and I've had issues with overheating before. So I souped up the cooling system, and it's remarkably loud, and I didn't think about that. I know there are things I can do to quiet the fan, but it takes money and time. So right now I'm just not. Reason I'm saying that is let me know as far as sound quality is concerned in the comments below. I'm still tweaking the mic. I have it has multiple patterns that it can record, and right now I'm using the cardioid, so it should only be recording things over here. And the computer is way over here, so I'm hoping it's not picking it up too much. Otherwise, yeah. So remember how I did those ranger things, and I mentioned that the newer subclasses of the ranger kind of fix the things we talked about for the PHB ranger. Yeah, well, one of my players in my only custom D&D game currently running is actually playing a Horizon Walker, which is one of the new subclasses of Ranger, and I have to review what it can do. So I figured it wouldn't be a bad idea to just do comprehensive D&D 5e guide on the new Ranger classes, and kind of show how they took some of the ideas of the revised Ranger and tried to use these subclasses to fix the problems with the core Ranger, instead of just releasing the revised Ranger. Again, I still have large issues with the PHB Ranger, and they don't have a replacement for the Beastmaster Ranger in here. So that's still a pretty big negative mark. But I have to say, the archetypes in here for the Ranger are much more balanced. They're a lot more fun to play, and they actually work much better than just the core Ranger. So let's go through them right now. The three archetypes are the Gloomstalker, the Horizon Walker, and the Monster Slayer. Each one has its own focus. Each one plays very differently. And each one has little things that it uses to really try to make up for all those things that kind of fought against each other in the PHB. Each one has its own kind of answer for the things that don't work for the Ranger. So let's start with the Gloomstalker. First thing, the Gloomstalker itself is, again, if we think back to what are the core features of the Ranger, and again, they are that natural, nature-based warrior, and they have some natural magic. Those are the real things. and their favorite enemy is the thing that really kind of defines them and makes them different from a paladin or a fighter or anything like that. So anything that these do should fit somewhere in those ideas. But again, since these are kind of trying to fix the things that are wrong, they may kind of rewrite a few things or redefine a few things so that the class actually works. So the Gloomstalker is very much that kind of natural fighter explorer thing, someone that's home in nature, but this one specifically is home in the darker parts of nature, the underdark, caves, the things like that. The darkness is the Gloomstalker's friend, which darkness is natural. Anywhere where there is light, there'll be the darkness, and anywhere there isn't light, there'll be the darkness. So think of this as kind of a cave, underground kind of ranger, and thematically, it's really cool. The first thing that all of these classes do that kind of takes from the revised rangers is every archetype has an expanded spell list. Each one, by choosing this archetype, you have more spells you have access to be able to learn and use as ranger spells. For the Gloomstalker, and these are spells that you just know. You don't have to choose them to learn. You just have extra spells you know. So the Gloomstalker at third, you get the Disguise Self, which again fits into that theme of being kind of a stalker. The ability to change yourself to look like something more familiar to your prey makes sense. Fifth level is Rope Trick, which is another really useful thing for ambushes, because you create this pocket space that no one can see you while you're in, and you use it to set up ambushes and things like that. Ninth level is Fear, which kind of feeds more into the kind of darkness hunter aspect, where your prey should be afraid of you, and you can use it to scare away the other things near your prey, so you can just hunt your prey. 13th is Greater Invisibility, which is crazy useful in general. And then 17th is Seeming, which is a really interesting, powerful spell. I won't get into too much detail, but it allows you to make some pretty massive changes in order to get what you want. So it's a great spell. The other thing you get at third level goes back to the revised ranger, where part of, I think, their first level ability was they got advantage on an initiative and all these other things that just made them act very quickly. Well, Dread Ambusher, basically, at the start of first turn each combat, your walking speeds increase by 10 feet, so your first turn in combat, you move faster. And you can give yourself a bonus to your initiative rolls equal to your wisdom modifier. Which, again, it doesn't give you advantage, which I had mentioned before is a little bit overpowered in my personal opinion. I think this is a lot better, and it still means you're probably going to be one of the first, maybe not always the first to act, but that just really gets that idea of, again, that hunting natural warrior. They're ready for a fight. And then if you take the attack action on that turn, you can make one additional weapon attack as part of that action, and if it hits, the target takes an extra 1d8 damage of the weapon's damage type. So not only do you act faster than most, you can move faster, and you can attack faster on that first turn. If this was something that always happened, that would be a little overpowered, but because it's limited to the first turn, it really kind of puts an emphasis on that ambusher type, that hunting type, where you're going to get the jump on your prey before they can do anything. So I really like that. I think thematically it works. It makes, again, it makes this ranger play very differently from a ranged fighter or a ranged rogue. And it gives it a little bit of its own thing instead of being kind of the jack of all trades, master and none that it is normally. The third thing you get is umbral sight at third level, which extends your dark vision. You either get a 30-foot dark vision, or your dark vision gets extended by 30 feet. So most characters that have dark vision will have a 90-foot dark vision, and everyone else will have a 30-foot. Very useful. Dark vision's crazy useful. And it has another thing. While in the darkness, you're invisible to any creature that relies on the dark vision to see you in that darkness. Again, as a gloomstalker, someone that works in the shadows, the ability for other creatures to see you, especially somewhere like the Underdark, where there is no natural light, all creatures down there have some form of the dark vision or tremor sense. This basically gives him the advantage over any creature that relies on the dark vision in complete darkness. Now, if they have a source of light, this doesn't do anything, which again gives it a little bit of a limiting factor so that it doesn't become overpowered. At 7th level, you get Iron Mind. You gain proficiency in wisdom saves, which is really useful because all mind-altering things are all wisdom saves. I think there might be one that's a charisma save, one or two, but and this kind of fits in thematically with the idea that a lot of Underdark creatures specifically use mind control. Illithids use mind control. There are a few, I believe there's a couple spiders that have some sort of mind control stuff, and a few other just weird kind of aberration type creatures that you can find in the Underdark. So it just kind of makes sense for a Gloomstalker to just build up a natural resistance. If you've multi-classed into Gloomstalker and you already have proficiency in wisdom saves, you can choose either intelligence or charisma saves. So even then, that's not a wasted thing, which is always good. You never know how someone's going to build their class, so having an addendum to make sure that that's going to be useful, since it's part of your archetype, is always good. Excuse me. At 11th level, you get Stalker's Flurry. Once on each of your turns, when you miss with a weapon attack, you can make another weapon attack as part of this same action. So that basically means you get a do-over once per turn, which is crazy useful. And again, when you look at the base ranger compared to the revised ranger, one of the issues we kind of had was the attacks themselves just really weren't all that great. You always had to have hunter's mark on them and all these other things. This really makes sure that you're getting the most out of your attacks. And with it being an 11th level ability, it basically once you hit 11th level, there's no way for you to have two 11th level abilities if you multi-class, because you max out at 20 levels. So in general, the 11th level of abilities really kind of pump all the characters up because they know those can't be combined with another high level of ability. Excuse me. So kind of cool. Again, fits into the warrior aspect of the ranger, and again makes them very unique to play compared to the other fighting classes. And then the 15th level ability is shadowy dodge, which basically anytime a creature makes an attack roll against you and it doesn't have advantage, you can use your reaction to give it the disadvantage. I just want to make sure. Yeah, which again, very useful. You do have to do it before you hear the result of the roll. So theoretically, the DM could roll, but as soon as they say, "Oh, does a 19 hit your armor class?" you can't go, "Oh, disadvantage." So you do have to kind of plan ahead and decide: do I want to use it here? Do I want to save my reaction for an opportunity attack? And like I've said many times before, any time you're given an option for something, it should be there should be positives and negatives to any choice you make. Because if there's only positives to it, it's not a choice; it's a requirement. And this does have that. You can't do opportunity attacks if you use this. You can only use it before the attack roll, not after. So you have to kind of gauge: do I want to risk giving disadvantage on an attack that's already gonna miss? How important is it for this attack to miss me? Things like that. So, yeah. Like I said, I think this fixes a lot of the issues with the Ranger. It's still not great. I still prefer the revised Ranger, but this is a much more solid Ranger. And Gloomstalker's fun to play. You get to be, you can go that whole edgelord. Oh, I'm a creature of the darkness. Darkness is my only friend, and I embrace it and could control it. It flows through me. Yeah, it's a cool character concept, and you can have a lot of fun with it. You can give rogues a run for their money, and shadow monks a run for their money, and just the ability to kind of scout and be secretive. So yeah, I like this. And in general, I think any, and this is all from Xanathar's guide, by the way. I think any of the archetypes for the Ranger in Xanathar's guide, if you place them side by side with a PHB Ranger, will always just be better. They learned and they did things to just make the Ranger work better. And remember, I mentioned before, in the Ranger's spell list, there's not really a ton of like melee based spells or spells that will benefit a melee fighter. And with this expanded spell list that they have, there's a lot more really useful spells for a melee character. Greater invisibility is crazy useful for a melee character. Rope trick is another one that can be good. Fear can be amazingly good, because if you dive right into combat and you've got 4 or 5 people around you, the ability to get rid of some of them is fantastic. So the next one is the Horizon Walker, which again, I have a player actually playing this, and this really feeds into the natural explorer kind of aspect of the Ranger that we've talked about. Now, I mentioned before, the PHB Ranger, so much of their exploring aspect of the class was very conditional on the campaign and the setting. So this tries to kind of fix that. while still having a very, very strong thematic aspect. I think the Horizon Walker is probably the one that has the most chance of being kind of downplayed a little bit, just based on the campaign you're in. If if you're not running a multi-planar campaign where there are portals between planes and stuff like that, some of the features of the Horizon Walker can kind of be useless. But there's enough here that even without that, the Horizon Walker is really cool and interesting. And again, plays very differently. I love it when my lights flicker. Then even the Gloomstalker, much less any of the other classes is out there. So first thing, they get expanded spell list too. And third level, they get protection from evil and good, which is crazy useful. And again, for a range character, it's relatively good. But for a melee character, if you're fighting evil creatures and they have to continue to make rolls in order to attack you, it's crazy useful. Fifth level is Misty Step, which is one of my favorite spells in the game. I really enjoy playing teleporting characters. It's something I've enjoyed playing since I first started. I just loved teleporting and Nightcrawler-esque characters. So Misty Step is great. Ninth is Haste. Again, massively useful. Raises your AC, gives you extra attacks, movement speed. It's amazing. But Banishment is a 13th level, which really fits into the class of being able to either send someone back to their plane or banish them to a demi-plane or something like. Just crazy useful. And then 17th, the Teleportation Circle, which really changes the Ranger from, you know, your nice kind of damage dealing auxiliary kind of character to someone that can actually get the party out of really bad situations, can help them travel massive distances, really ups that explorer aspect of the Ranger. Also, at third level, you get to detect portal. And like I said before, this is one of the features that, if you're not really running a portal-heavy game, this can actually kind of become useless. But it still fits with the archetype, and it's a really interesting thing. You gain the ability to magically sense the presence of a planar portal. As an action, you detect the distance and the direction to the closest planar portal within 1 mile. So kind of similar to Primeval Awareness, but this again gives you direction and distance. So significantly more useful than, oh, there's a dragon somewhere within 5 miles. This is, oh, there's a portal to the plane of fire, and it's, you know, half a mile that way. You know, so very useful. And then you can only use it once per short or long rest. So even if that thing is not used often, it's not a huge loss, but it can be a major gain in any campaign where there are planar portals. So that one's cool. And then the other third level of ability you get is Planar Warrior. And this one, remember before when I mentioned that Hunter's Mark is a defining feature of the Ranger. However, because it's a spell and not just an ability, it just doesn't feel right. If it's such a defining thing and you can actually choose not to take it, it's really not a defining thing, and you are kind of forced to take it in order to play the Ranger. This Planar Warrior actually gives you an ability that's similar to Hunter's Mark, but doesn't use a spell slot. You don't have to choose that over a different spell. But basically, as a bonus action, you choose a creature within 30 feet, and then the next time you hit, so with multi-attack, this would only, extra attack, this would only happen once per turn. But the next time you hit, all the damage with a weapon attack, all the damage against that creature turns into force damage, and it takes an additional 1d8 force damage. So this is very much a kind of different version of Hunter's Mark. The only issue I have with it is it uses your bonus action just like Hunter's Mark, but it only happens once. So when you do this, you basically have to use your bonus action at every turn to get that damage. And at 11th level, it turns, instead just a extra 1d8, turns into 2d8. So it actually becomes more useful than dual wielding at that point. So your melee ranger is going to kind of be forced to, even if you are dual wielding, give up their offhand attack for this planar warrior. However, that does open up the idea of a ranger that uses a two-handed sword, or a versatile weapon, or a spear, something like that, because since they can't get the extra damage from an offhand attack, it makes sense to use a great axe or a great sword or something like that. So yeah, it opens some doors and it shuts some doors. It's interesting is the best way to put it. And again, it fits into that natural warrior aspect of the ranger. At 7th level, you get what's called Ethereal Step, which lets you, as a bonus action, to cast Etherealness, which is a spell that basically just makes you kind of translucent and allows you to walk in the ethereal plane, which is a plane that's literally parallel to the prime plane, where if you're in the ethereal plane, you can actually see the prime material plane, but you can't really interact with things unless you have special abilities. Excuse me for a second. That is root beer for anyone wondering. I don't actually drink anymore, so that's as close as I get, but I love it. So etherealness allows you to walk through walls, walk through people. It's an incredibly useful ability. Ethereal Step you can only use once per short or long rest, so it's not broken. It takes your bonus action, so that that does give you a choice between do I want to use Planar Warrior, do I want to use an offhand attack, do I want to use Etherealness. All of them have their pluses and minuses. And Etherealness normally can last, I think, for either a minute or to 10 minutes. This just lasts to the end of your turn. So you very quickly shift in the ethereal plane, go where you want, shift back out. Again, from a combat perspective, this means you can't be trapped. Because any time they put you in a situation where you can't go where you want, you can just walk through a wall or walk through the person in front of you. It's pretty simple. But from the exploration type, this turns your ranger very much into a fantastic scout. And they're already good, but now if you get to a place where you're scouting a house and there's a locked door, or you're in a dungeon and there's just dangerous stuff in front of you, and the thing to turn all the dangerous stuff off is on the other side of the room. Your ranger is now an expert at doing stuff like that, and getting a short rest to recharge it is not that hard. But it's enough of a limitation that it doesn't become broken. So really cool, and again fits that whole planar warrior thing. And even without multi-planes, the ethereal plane is always there. You don't need a gate to go to it. A lot of spells actually shift you through the ethereal plane often. So 11th level, you get the distance strike, which is basically when you take the attack action, you can teleport up to 10 feet before each attack to an unoccupied space you can see. And if you attack at least 2 different creatures, you can teleport one more time and make one more attack against a third creature. This kind of is like the Drunken Monk's ability to flurry of blows a bunch of different people. But it has a teleport aspect, which fits with the class, to it. And it's just a really cool idea of just like, blink, oh, I'm here, shing, blink, I'm over here, shing, blink, I'm over here, shing. Like, it's just a cool idea. And since you can already move between attacks, this basically just gives you an extra 30 feet of movement as long as you're attacking someone. Please forgive me. No idea what's wrong. Right? It's something in my throat. Anyway, so it's a really cool ability. And again, when you stack it with everything else the Ranger has, it's really cool and interesting, and really gives the Ranger the ability to fight groups at a really interesting way. And interact with the team very differently. While everyone else may be focused firing an enemy, the Ranger can go off and attack 3 different enemies, and yet still be able to be far enough away from them that they can't attack back immediately. Yeah, I think it's really cool. Again, I love playing teleporting characters. If you combine the distance strike with Misty Step, you literally can run in, boom, 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 and then Misty Step out is your bonus action, and become the ultimate kind of harassing type fighter, where you can go in to do a bunch of attacks, and then, you know, bamf behind your meat shield like a barbarian or a paladin, and they can't do anything to you. Again, you're limited by your spell slots, but now you can see how building a Horizon Walker can turn into this really interesting, fun character to play that you can't play as any other class. And again, that's what I think a archetype should be. It should make you feel unique. You should feel like you're doing things that no one else can do, based on your abilities and your base class. And I think this pulls it off wonderfully. Finally, at 15th level, you get Spectral Defense. When you take damage from an attack, you can use your reaction to give yourself resistance to all of that attack's damage on this turn. Kind of similar to like evasion from a rogue, but it has its own flair. It has its own flavor to make it fit the Horizon Walker. Yeah, I personally think the Horizon Walker is a really interesting way to play a Ranger. It changes the Ranger a little bit. Like I mentioned before, these archetypes kind of redefine aspects of the Ranger class to just make them work better. And this redefines the exploration nature part of the ranger, to the point where this isn't just a ranger that explores nature and plains and forest and that. This is a ranger that explores existence. They jump between planes. They're constantly looking for new things and new experiences. They have knowledge of different ways of existence. It's a really cool idea, and mechanically, when you use these changes with the base PHB Ranger, it just plays a lot better, and is a lot more fun than the base Ranger. The last one we're going to do is the Monster Slayer, and to be blunt, the Monster Slayer is the hunter archetype, but better. It just, everything this does kind of is an upgrade of what the hunter could do. It gets rid of a lot of the things that the hunter wasn't really good at. Yeah, let's go through this. First thing, they get more spells, which again is a theme of this Xanathar guide stuff. They get protection from evil and good. Again, very useful. Zone of Truth. And I guess I should explain the Monster Slayer. This is specifically the flavor of it. Is you are dedicated to hunting down creatures of the night and wielders of grim magic. This is kind of, in previous editions, they had things like a Mage Slayer was, I believe it was a Paladin's kit in second edition, and an undead slayer, undead hunter, was again, I think was a paladin's subclass, but this kind of recreates those things where you're going to be really good at killing a very specific kind of monster, and being able to deal with some of the worst enemies to fight in D&D, which are enemy spell casters. Now, they have a Mage Slayer feat, but the issue with that is there's so many other feats that you have to give up in order to use that, and it's only useful in very specific situations. This Monster Slayer will have things that allow it to attack casters but better, but none of them feel quite as limiting as the Mage Slayer feat. And I think if I'd have to look at the Mage Slayer again, but if you took that feat with the Monster Slayer, you would be really awesome. So anyway, let's go back to this. So we did third and then fifth level is Zone of Truth. Which I think is a weird fit, but I can kind of see it fitting into the idea of I'm here to, hunt the undead or hunt evil mages. You're going to tell me where they are, kind of thing. It's weird, but I get it. Magic Circle. I have to look that spell up because I can't actually remember what it does. But again, it fits into that anti-caster thing, if I remember correctly. But Banishment is self-explanatory, and then Hold Monster at 17th level is again that's prime. I'm going to destroy this creature kind of spell, and it's really useful. Paralysis from things like Hold Monster are massively useful. You get auto crits from melee attacks within 5 feet. You have advantage on all your attack rolls against them. Like, it's a really useful thing. So the things you get at third level with it, you get Hunter's Sense. As an action, you choose a creature you can see within 60 feet. You learn its damage immunities, resistances, or vulnerabilities and what they are. And if the creature is hidden from divination magic, you just find out that they don't have any resistances or anything like that, whether or not they do or not. So this really kind of redefines the favored enemy aspect of the ranger, where again the favored enemy you could get advantage on knowledge checks. This just gives you information on a creature, and it works on technically any creature. Instead of having a predefined one that you're really good at, this just kind of you're really good at focusing on a creature, learning about it. You can use that equal times to your wisdom modifier. So higher wisdom modifier, the more chances you get, and you get all of the uses back on a long rest. Again, for a tactical perspective, being able to know damage immunities, resistances, weakness, that's really useful, especially if the DM does a lot of homebrewing and things like that, or you don't have the monster manual memorized. This can be incredibly useful, and again fits into that monster slayer, hunter idea. Slayer's Prey. As a bonus action, you designate one creature you can see within 60 feet. And the first time each turn you hit that target with a weapon attack, it takes an extra 1d6 damage from the weapon. It lasts until you finish a short or long rest. It ends early if you designate a different creature. This is Hunter's Mark, but by another name. Now, it does change a little bit with the idea that Hunter's Mark does the extra damage every single time you hit. This is only the first time you hit on a turn. But again, I like this. Despite the fact that you will actually do less damage with this versus Hunter's Mark, I like this better. Because again, you're not wasting a spell slot. You're not wasting concentration on a spell. You can get most of the effects of Hunter's Mark without having to choose a spell to do a defining feature of the Ranger class. So I really like this. I wish this is how they would have implemented Hunter's Mark for the whole class, instead of making it a spell, but whatever. So that's third level. Seventh level, you get supernatural defense. And the Monster Slayer is really based on this Slayer's Prey. So I think everything after this is going to modify that Slayer's Prey and make it more and more useful. So again, whenever for this supernatural defense, whenever the target of your Slayer's Prey forces you to make a saving throw, and whenever you make an ability check to escape that target's grapple, add 1d6 to your roll. So if you mark someone, not only if they try to hit you with an area attack or something, are you better at avoiding it, but if they grapple you or something, you can get out of their grasp much easier. Which for things like scorpions will auto grapple, constrictor snakes will auto grapple. That can be really rough, especially since a lot of monsters that grapple you don't just grapple you, they also restrain you. So that's really useful. And then even without that, it's useful if you put Slayer's Prey on a wizard, because then any saving throw spell they try to hit you with, you're going to be good at. But this is also good for things like dragons. Their breath attack, you now have an extra d6 chance of avoiding it. All these things really useful, really good to use, stuff like that. 11th level, you get Magic User's Nemesis. This is when you really start turning on the, oh, you're going to cast spells on me? How cute. And with it being an 11th level ability, that's really when you start having to deal with the really bad magic users. You can deal with lower level magic users in the first two tiers of adventuring. They're generally not that bad. They'll have one or two like really powerful spells, but they'll only have double digit hit points, and you generally be able to burn them really quick. They normally will just hide behind meat shields, and if you can find a way around that, they tend to go down pretty fast. Once you get above that, that's when they get really powerful spells that just mess you up. At 11th level, you gain the ability to thwart someone else's magic. When you see a creature casting a spell or teleporting, and it doesn't mention anything about using a spell to teleport, so this would actually trigger if you were fighting like a shadow monk and they were using their shadow step ability, or any creatures that have an innate ability to teleport, like a blink dog. This would work for them. You can use your reaction to try to magically foil it. The creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC, or its spell or teleport fails and is wasted. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. This can be clutch. Mage is like a wizard is casting like meteor storm or something like that. That's gonna just wipe the party, make them have to roll their wisdom, which is not something a lot of wizards have a huge score in, and they can fail the casting, or if they're trying to escape, you can stop them from teleporting away, so you can either kill them or capture them. I mean, that's brilliant. And because it fails, they waste this spell slot. So when we look at, again, that action economy, not only are you taking away their action, you're taking away resources they have as well that they could use later on. It makes this character a nightmare for spellcasters, but it also is one of those things where you have to make a decision. You only get to use it once per short or long rest. Do you use it on the really powerful spell and hope that they can't teleport away and you have to fight them again? Do you hold back on it so that you can you use it when they are trying to escape? Again, it gives you choices. It doesn't give you mandates. So again, really cool. And then 15th level, you get Slayer's Counter. You gain the ability to counterattack your prey when your prey tries to sabotage you. If the target of your Slayer's prey forces you to make a saving throw, you can use your reaction to make one weapon attack against the quarry. You make this attack immediately before making this saving throw. If your attack hits, you save automatically succeeds in addition to the attack's normal effects. This is really cool. Because, first of all, you no longer have to be good at saving throws with this ability. It is your reaction, so if you use this, you won't be able to use your magic user's nemesis or things like that. But instead of having to make a saving throw, which if you're going to get, like, if you're a ranger and it's a strength saving throw and you're just not strong, you have an 8 in it, instead of trying and hoping your strength is high enough, or maybe they're having you make a constitution save and you're just not good with constitution, instead of doing that, all you have to do is hit them. And as you get higher and higher, at 15th level, you generally are going to have like a +9, sometimes a +10 or 11 to your attack roll, depending on the magic items. So you have a significantly better chance, especially with high-level things like dragons, There's sometimes when dragons actually have a lower AC than their spell save. And there are other creatures like Alhoun and things like that, where their AC is significantly lower than their spell save. So the ability to attack to make your save instead of having to make a save is mind-boggling. It changes the game massively for this character. And again, I mentioned this compared to the hunter that had all those abilities that really didn't fit, and they kind of fought against each other. This one, it does extra damage on a fairly regular basis. If you combine Slayer's Prey with Hunter's Mark, you do crazy damage because there's nothing saying you can't. And then everything else, like this is a really interesting, basically kind of a foil type character. Very similar to the Drunken Monk, just to bring that again, where the character is really built to break enemy plans as opposed to help your allies' plans. And this one is very much along that same line. This character is meant to just ruin your enemy's plans. And that can be part, and it should be part of your your allies' plan for the battle. Yeah, your focus is going to be much more offensive than defensive with this character. And again, I think it's interesting. I think it fixes a lot of the issues with the Ranger itself. The PHB Ranger is still broken. It still needs a redesign. But with these three archetypes, a lot of the problems are mitigated. Would these be cooler? Would these be cooler if they were on top of the revised Ranger instead of the PHB Ranger? Yes. To be 100% blunt, I think these would be much cooler on the revised Ranger. The only issue is because they are designed to fix the Ranger, putting them on a fixed Ranger breaks everything, and then you have the same issues before. We have cool ideas that kind of fight against themselves. So these would have to be redesigned in order to work with the revised Ranger. However, for things like the Adventurers League, this makes playing a Ranger viable for more than just roleplay. Now again, I play in the Adventure League, I played a PHB Ranger. I didn't take anything that wasn't in the PHB, and I had a blast doing it. So it's not saying that you can't play a Ranger from the PHB. You just have to know the system really well to not kind of feel limited by your Ranger. Whereas these, you have a lot more freedom to make mistakes and make choices that are less than optimal for role-playing reasons or lore reasons, and not feel significantly handicapped by your class. So yeah, that's the Xanathar's guide Ranger subclasses. Like I said, I think they do a lot to fix the Ranger as best they can, and I think they're a lot of fun to play. So your next campaign, if you want to play a Ranger, try one of these three. I think they're interesting, they're fun, and a lot more balanced than the other Rangers. In the comments below, like I said before, let me know about sound, if you can hear my computer fans, if they're annoying, or if you don't care. I'm still tweaking the setup, so we'll figure something out. And also, what other classes do you want to see me do this on, or anything like that? If there's things from the DM's Guild that you want to see me do a deep dive into, let me know as well. And I will be getting back to player faves relatively soon. That takes a little bit more time and energy, and I just haven't had it. for a little while, so that's why I've been doing these. But now that one of my campaigns is ended, I have a little bit more time to try and do some other stuff. So again, let me know what you guys are thinking. Otherwise, that's all for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye bye.